live in a secret hidden in plain view. The secret is the power of community. The impact of coming together in a friendly way, of building relationships, of creating belonging and welcoming community members is transformational. Once it comes into view, the invisible magic starts to come to life. I gave my first TEDx talk in 2020. I reported on the results of the Compassionate Frome project, where a program of compassionate communities was integrated with the workings of the primary care centre Frome medical practice. The results were dramatic. Whole population emergency admissions in Frome fell by 14%, whilst in the rest of Somerset they increased by 29%. The background to this is that this was the first intervention to ever have reduced whole population emergency admissions. I summarised it by saying that if there was a tablet that could reduce admissions by this amount, at 30%, it would be a medical miracle, the likes of which we've not seen before. This was the evidence of the impact of community. Since then, I've been a detective seeking to understand how these dramatic results came about. The journey has been eye-opening and the implications are enormous. The journey starts with evolutionary biology. We got up on our hind legs about 2 million years ago, and we survived in small groups of between 25 and 200 people. We didn't just survive, we flourished. We did this through care, kindness, cooperation, and compassion. In other words, looking after each other gave us a survival advantage. The evolutionary emotional scientist Dr. Keltner came up with the phrase survival of the kindest in his book, Born to be Good. And the roots of our social nature are found in the 600 million years of animal evolution. Dacre was able to show how emotions help us to be super social, to live in community. And the evidence doesn't end there. It's felt deeply in our biology. The work of George Slavich and Steve Cole have shown how social relationships have an impact on our biology down to a genomic level. This diagram, taken from their paper on human social genomics, shows the multiple pathways through which relationships have an impact. One of the striking features of it is how it shows clearly that people through community have an impact on biology, down to the level of gene expression. So survival of the kindest is a much better description of our biology than survival of the fittest, a term coined by British philosopher Herbert Spencer, not Charles Darwin, who was really interested in our social nature. His last book was The Expression of Emotion of Man and Animals. My detective work did not end there. The next question was, are there other examples of survival of the kindest outside of health? Could community affect other areas of life? The results of this are somehow, in some ways, more surprising than the results that we found in Frome. So how do we know if community is in place? Well, it's a process of moving from fear to belonging. Most of us are familiar with the flight, fight, fright, and freeze reactions to danger. In these moments, our body prioritizes getting out of danger as quickly as possible. Access to our prefrontal cortex is shut down. The prefrontal cortex is the area of the brain that's responsible for our better qualities, of making sense of our memories, of being creative and imaginative, of regulation of our behavior. In times of danger, thinking about and weighing up what to do next is not a priority. Rather, it's to get out of danger as quickly as possible. When we are in the safe, strong community setting, all the gateways to our better qualities open up. So this lens is really helpful in understanding what's going on in the major areas of our world. One of the clearest demonstrations of this is to be found in politics. If we look at the structure of the British Parliament, sometimes referred to as a mother of all parliaments, we see the opposing parties bearing down on each other. It's said that the distance between the two front benches is just greater than 2 sword widths to stop MPs stabbing each other. The culture of British politics is one of fear. A small hierarchy controls the party through the whips. Yes, they really are called the whips, through a process of threats and promises. MPs are in the worst possible state to really be able to analyse the strengths and weaknesses of complex arguments to make sure that the welfare of the whole population is considered. The last thing we need for good political decision-making is for our MPs to be in a state of traumatic fear. It doesn't need to be like this. We can go to Frome again for a different way of doing politics. The Independents for Frome are a party drawn together by the principles of the ways of working. The ways of working govern how people behave towards each other. Anyone can join the Independents for Frome, and diverse views are welcomed as long as they agree to sign up to the ways of working. This means that the party is drawn together through values rather than tribal politics and dogmatic ideas. Differences in opinion can then be resolved in an agreeable and sensible way. At the same time, the Independents for Frome have instituted a system of participatory democracy. With election cycles of every 4 years, it's possible for people to be elected and then completely ignore the populace until the next election cycle. But the planning, decision-making, and follow-up can be part of the democratic process, whereby local people are able to talk about what concerns them and come up with solutions on how to address the concerns. The Independents for Frome have been so successful that they have won every seat in Frome Town Council for the last 3 election cycles. One of the hallmarks of a healthy community is the recognition of the importance of interdependence. From the small tribe hunter-gatherer perspective, people were reliant not just on each other, but on the natural world as well. If food, shelter, and warmth are only possible because of interdependence, if care is not taken of the natural landscape and nature, these things will disappear. So the sense of connection and belonging that's part of community is extended into nature. And with this in mind, it's no surprise that it's said that the bulk of the world's biodiversity is on the land held by indigenous peoples who embed interdependence in all aspects of their life. If politics is going to change, something needs to happen in the world of economics. The dominant model, irrespective of political system, is that of extractive economics. One feature of this is extraction of money from communities by big business, often to owners who live in different countries. But the extractive process doesn't end there. Extraction of natural resources happens at the same time. Low-paid jobs result in inequality with consequences such as poor housing and living conditions, low self-esteem, and a loss of community infrastructure. People feel like they've been abandoned. So extraction of finance from communities leaves behind a wasteland. Fortunately, new economic models are emerging, which take into account the natural resources that are often ignored. Models such as donut economics proposed by Kate Raworth exist, and other terms include circular and regenerative economics. These models recognize the importance of taking an interdisciplinary approach, inclusive of social sciences, the environment, renewable energy resources, diversity, and collective learning. And these are not just theoretical models, but they're being put into practice in scale by companies such as Patagonia and whole cities such as Melbourne, Leeds, Copenhagen, and Amsterdam. Amsterdam is the first city to adopt the donut economics model and aims to have 100% reuse of raw materials by 2050. The approach is simple. Set up projects within ecological boundaries that benefit both the community and the economy at the same time. So for our best qualities of our humanity to come out, we need a strong sense of belonging. This is true in politics and business, and it's also true of our schools. How many of us are left with a sense of alienation from our education? This is built into school systems the world over. It's a process of winners and losers, a competitive system of success and failure. When it's like this, the community environment of the school is an add-on rather than the main event to create the best conditions for learning. Examples of cooperative education which stimulate peer learning and the creative imagination of children are covered in the amazing TED Talks of Ken Robinson and Sugata Mitra in his talk, Children-Driven Education. Finally, we have to address the issue of diversity. When communities of belonging exclude others, we miss out on so much, on cultural richness, on friendship, and of recognition of the interdependent and connected nature of our world. Most of all, we miss out on the opportunity for diverse ideas that are needed for the multiple solutions to solve the complex problems of the world. Every single human being, because of our heritage of survival of the kindest, carries with them gifts, skills, and treasures, as John McKnight and Cormac Russell say. These are of not much use from an individual perspective, but when they're shared in community, their effect becomes magnified. So regeneration of communities can happen at a local level by the people who live in those communities. Environmentalists all say the same thing: the lack of political will to change. We do not need new solutions to solve the problems of the forthcoming sixth great extinction. We do not need new technologies. We need the political will to change. For this to happen, we need to harness the power of community in politics, in business, in schools, and in diversity. We need to unleash the magic of communities of belonging.